Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar on Antigua and Barbuda. We have a great panel for you. I want to start by introducing myself. My name is Judy Galst, and I'm Managing Director of Private Clients at Henley and Partners. I kind of wear two hats. One is I work directly with clients, understanding their goals and objectives, and then make recommendations to them on programs like Antigua that might meet their needs. And I also work very closely with many intermediaries, such as family offices, wealth managers, trust and estate attorneys, as an extension of their advisory services to help their clients who might be considering citizenship by investment. For those of you that are not familiar with Henley and Partners, I wanted to give you a very brief introduction. We specialize in helping people obtain alternative residence and citizenship by investment. There are many programs around the world where countries have laws that will allow people to gain residence or citizenship by making some sort of financial contribution. Today, we will be focusing on Antigua. We also have a government advisory line of business that creates these programs around the world. To date, the programs we've worked on have raised over $15 billion in foreign direct investment, and we've actually created 4 of the 5 programs in the Caribbean. So soak in this beautiful picture. You'll see some more beautiful images throughout the course of the next hour, but this is Antigua and Barbuda. And I'm joined today by 3 panelists that are going to help introduce you to the country and to the program. First, we'll be hearing from Charmaine Donovan. She holds the distinction of being the first national of Antigua and Barbuda and the first woman to head the country's citizenship by investment unit. And she's held this role since 2017. Prior to this recent appointment, Charmaine served in the CIU in 3 prominent capacities. She was Chief Compliance Officer, Chief Operating Officer, and Acting Chief Executive Officer. She was instrumental in shaping and implementing policies and procedures from the establishment of the unit and making necessary enhancements in responses to changes in the industry. Joining her will be Brian Dobbin, who is the co-founder with his wife Cal of Elmsbridge, which is a private international property development company in Antigua that has been building property in the Caribbean for nearly 20 years. He's spent his entire career in the luxury property development market. He has twice won the International Property Award for the world's best destination development, and his firm has a long history with citizenship by investment development, starting in Canada in the late 90s and throughout the Caribbean and Europe in the last 2 decades. He resides in Antigua, and although he and his wife have Canadian, Irish, French, and English passports between them, they have also just bought an approved property in Antigua and are currently obtaining their Antiguan citizenship. And last but not least, we have Juliet Marcel Bally, who is a licensed local agent for the Antigua Citizenship by Investment Program. She's a certified investment advisor in the Eastern Caribbean securities market and a certified anti-money laundering specialist. She serves as the Chief Operating Officer and Director at James and McGinley Limited, which is a leading immigration and real estate firm in Antigua and Barbuda. So you've got lots of expertise. I want to start by just talking about some of the key drivers that I'm hearing from clients about what appeals to them with Antigua and Barbuda. First, of course, is the quality of life. I just got back from my first trip there a few weeks ago, and I can attest to the beauty of the country and the warmth of its people. It is a great place for a second home. The passport is a way for Americans and people from other countries to have enhanced mobility if for some reason their passport was blocked, which unfortunately we all experienced during the pandemic for the first time. And that really was what started a surge of interest among Americans to learn more about Caribbean citizenship. It's a safe haven. I'm talking to maybe 8 or 10 clients a day these days, and every conversation I have, there is some mention right now of pursuing this as some form of plan B. What could be a nicer place to go to if you felt a bit unsettled at home for a short period of time than the Caribbean? The program has many advantages, and Charmaine is going to elaborate on them in a moment. One of the most notable ones is that while you can obtain the citizenship quite easily, you don't have a high physical presence required in order to maintain it. They'll just ask that you come for 5 days in the first 5 years to take your oath. Although few Americans actually become tax residents in Antigua, because that would require you to live there for 183 days, it is a country with a very favorable tax regime. It has no capital gains, inheritance, or personal income taxes. And finally, it has a brand new airport with direct flights from New York, Toronto, Miami, Atlanta, Charlotte, London, lots of places, so it's very easy to get to. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn this over to the experts at this point. I'll ask Charmaine to share her wisdom with us.
Oh, thank you so much, Judy. It is truly a pleasure to be here to speak about Antigua and Barbuda, the beautiful Twin Island state. There are many benefits for choosing Antigua and Barbuda. As Judy would have recognized on her last visit, well, her first and most recent visit here, what you find about Antigua and Barbuda is that it's very well developed. There are 5 programs in the region, and when you do actually take a trip to each of them, you will quickly realize that Antigua is very modern. We have a modern airport, which Judy mentioned, and of course that gives us direct flights and accessibility to USA, Europe, and Canada. We also have a very modern seaport, and what that does is sets Antigua up to become a hub, a logistics hub for the Caribbean. We have modern health facilities. We have successfully facilitated several kidney transplants. Of course, these are key indicators that the healthcare is modern. We also facilitate a number of corrective eye surgeries, facilitate cancer treatment and the like. So if you're concerned about the quality of life that you'll have in Antigua and Barbuda, I don't think that that should be number one on your radar in terms of wondering if this is a country you can actually move to. There are a number of persons who have been successful through the program who have made the decision to move to Antigua and Barbuda and operate their businesses from this country, as well as we have great educational facilities here, including a very successful and well-acclaimed international school. We also have a number of tertiary institutions, most notably the American University of Antigua, which is a medical school that has very close ties with the US, so that successful students are able to have residency in the US. There are schools that they have relationships with that once you finish with your schooling here in Antigua, you can immediately move on to residency in a university hospital in the US. We also have, and we're very, very proud to indicate that we have the 4th landed campus of the University of the West Indies. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the university, it ranks in the top 1 percentile of universities worldwide. So for us, it is actually a wonderful thing. And we are also the only program in the region that has an education option for citizenship. So persons can make a contribution to the University of the West Indies for its ongoing maintenance as well as its expansion by making an application under this option. We also have a very low crime rate, so Antigua is very safe for you to be here and bring your family, raise your family here. And our economy is very stable. On average, we are experiencing at least 5% growth annually. And of course, our currency is pegged to the US. And so the currency is very strong. There's not a concern about devaluation. Of course, Judy mentioned the warmth of the people. And I have to say, this is one of the key features that people always regale about after visiting Antigua and Barbuda. People feel as if they're family when they come to Antigua because we are so accustomed to offering warm hospitality to persons on a regular basis that it just seems second nature to us that once there's someone visiting, we will, if it is that you say you're trying to find a particular location, it is not uncommon for persons to say, okay, let me join you in your vehicle and direct you exactly to where you're going. So we are very warm and friendly, very hospitable. Let me jump over to the recently concluded Caribbean Investment Summit. We were fortunate to host this year's edition of the prestigious regional and international summit because we have participants from all of the programs in the region, the 5 programs in the region, and as well as our international stakeholders. For the first time ever hosting this conference, we had 4 prime ministers who were actively participating in the conference. It was very, very successful. And the big thing for us here at the Citizenship by Investment Unit is the award ceremony. And we walked away with 3 great awards. The first one being the Family Inclusivity Excellence Award. Then we also copped the Global Reputation Award and the big one, the Program of the Year. So we are indeed very proud. All of our hard work is paying off. And I think that the world is recognizing more and more what a gem Antigua and Barbuda is and how great the Citizenship by Investment program here is. Let's look at the first award, Family Inclusivity Excellence. And we actually have the most expansive definition of dependence there is. So from your grandparents to your grandchildren can be included on the application. Grandparents for the applicant and his or her spouse can be included from the age of 55. There's no need for them to show that they're financially dependent, as well as the parents of the applicant and the spouse. Children of the applicant and the spouse can be included up to age 30, and there's no need for them to evidence that they are in an institution of learning to be able to qualify. The siblings of the applicant and his or her spouse can also be included. The only qualifying criteria is that the sibling is unmarried. So it doesn't matter the age of the sibling, doesn't matter whether the sibling is financially dependent or not, they just need to be unmarried. So that could be widowed, divorced, or never married. You can also include children of the children, which is the grandchildren, and the spouse of the children. The good thing about the Antigua and Barbuda program is that if you are not quite ready to include all of these dependents when you initially submit the application, after approval, you're able to add your dependents. So if you're a single applicant and subsequent to your approval, you got married, you can add your wife to the application. Then you start having children, you can add your children to the application. So Antigua and Barbuda, the program is very, very inclusive. We are very family oriented. And again, I make reference to the UE option, which really was designed for large families. So application size of 6 or more can utilize this option, and it's very, very affordable for families. We look at the Global Reputation Award. And I have to say that even speaking with officials from various jurisdictions, they recognize Antigua and Barbuda for their very robust background checks on applicants of the program. So if you are a successful applicant of the program, you can feel very proud to know that you are among the elite. And so that persons who hold the distinction of being a citizen of Antigua and Barbuda through this program are very well vetted. In terms of Program of the Year, I think that there is the recognition that Antigua and Barbuda continues to ensure that they look at the market, see what the market needs are, and continuously design or make design changes to the program to be able to satisfy the potential clients and to continue to make the program as attractive as possible. We've demonstrated that when necessary, we will make the legislative changes. An example of that is the expanded definition of dependents. Another example was when we had COVID and persons were unable to travel, but there is the requirement in the legislation for persons to swear their oath. So we actually mapped out an entire process for persons to be able to swear their oath virtually. That also required legislative change to enable that, to facilitate that. So we're consistently working on the legislation, improving our processes, as well as working on the customer service experience. There is a saying that people may not always remember what you say to them, but they will always remember how you made them feel. And so that is what we are focusing on in Antigua and Barbuda, ensuring that everyone who interacts with this program comes away feeling wanted, feeling a part of, and just having an overall great feeling about Antigua and Barbuda. So I'll stop here and allow the next expert panelist to give his overview of Antigua and Barbuda.
I'm going to jump in for one quick sec, Charmaine. That was amazing. I wanted to tell people that there is a Q&A thing at the bottom of your screen. So if you have any questions, type them in there. And then at the end, hopefully we'll have time to respond to them. If not, we'll reach out to you separately to answer your questions. Secondly, I just wanted to give like a quick summary of the two investment options. Charmaine addressed that you can make a contribution to the National Development Fund. That amount is $230,000 per application, and she elaborated an application can include a lot of people. Or if you have a party of 6 or more, you might choose for the University of West Indies with the contribution at the 260,000 level, again, per application. But another route is to actually make an investment in real estate. And this is setting Brian up for his presentation because Antigua has some amazing real estate options. The investment level is slightly higher, 300,000 per application, but you have the ability to actually sell your real estate after holding it for 5 years. So it can really be a great investment as well. So Brian, take it away.
Well, thank you, Judy, and thank you, Charmaine. And I'll just take over the screen for a minute. My presentation will be more pictorial. Yeah, my company is named Elmsbridge. Just bring up the PowerPoint here. And I actually started in Canada, in Ireland, where I was born, and then through Canada. And our first project was in Western Newfoundland in Canada, and it got me involved in citizenship investment. So I go back over 25 years with citizenship and property development. And this was a project in a small part of Canada that had tremendous success, over 300 investors. We sold these properties, and this put us in the business full time, which then took us down into the Caribbean and to Antigua. And just to orientate you, in case you're not exactly sure where we are, we're in the Lesser Antilles at the top of this chain of islands. Antigua itself is 10 miles by 12 miles, so relatively small. Population of 90,000, 80 to 90,000. The census is this year. We'll find out exactly how many. And there's very distinct parts of the island. Antigua's history goes back almost 100 years as a destination for wealthy North American and Europeans. So it dovetails very well into real estate and citizenship. Some prominent families like the Johnsons, the Carnegies came here in the 1940s and started the first residential tourism on the island. And it's a big part of the economy now. We first came here over 20 years ago to help sell projects and develop. And we fell in love with the island, my wife and I. So we're pretty much exact examples of internationals that come to Antigua and don't leave. And that happens a fair bit. I'm going to talk about two projects and two parts of the island. The West Coast, we have a project called the Gardens and a new project coming up in the new year. And in the South Coast, we have a project called the Beach Houses and also a new project there coming up in the new year. We've been selling these with Henley and Partners now for the last almost 2 years, very successfully. We're down to about 11 properties out of 60 left. So we will be introducing new projects in the next 2 to 3 quarters. The first project is the Gardens, and it's located on Antigua's west coast, which you can see is quite beautiful. This is the Caribbean Sea, the white sandy beaches, and Antigua is very famous for its beaches. It has over 300 beaches. A lot of times you'll see advertisements for other Caribbean islands, and they're actually Antigua beaches. Jolly Harbor is the biggest man-made marina in the Caribbean. It was developed over 30 years ago and has recently been purchased by 3 billionaire Canadians who are redeveloping it. And our first project is in this resort area. It's already has 600 homes that are occupied in it, so it's a good investment. And there's going to be 300 to 400 million US invested now. It's already started. So it's a great capital appreciation investment. That's what it looks like from the ground. Right now, we're working on this island here in the middle of your screen. That's called the Harbor Island. And we have a project of 37 villas that we're building there. I think we've got about 11 left. And yeah, it's connected to the ocean. It's got a beautiful marina there. It's very popular and a very convenient destination on the West Coast. That was our typical 2-bed property that we've built. And this is a 3-bed that's just been finished. Those properties range in price from 1.3 million to 1.9 million. So that'll give you an idea of the property prices in Antigua. They're fairly expensive for the region, but that's got a lot to do with the destination and the desirability of it. This is some shots of our interiors now that we finished our first villas. And these are renting quite well. They're ahead of our projections. We project between 2 and 5% return for our owners. And in our first year, we're ahead of that projection. We also offer these in whole villas and in fractions. And the fractions are a very popular citizenship product. Essentially, a fraction is a ownership of the villa through a special purpose vehicle company. So a 2-bedroom will have 5 owners and a 3-bedroom will have 6 owners. And they all share weeks in the villa, which we then use for their vacation time, or we rent and give them a return. So that's worked quite well. This is a tour of our first 2-bedroom villa, just as we finished it. We'll give you an idea of the interior finishes here. So for $300,000 in this villa, you get 8 weeks of rental or 8 weeks of use. And that's rotated each year between the owners so that you have over 6 years, pretty much every week of the year to rent or use yourself. Like I said, Jolly Harbor is becoming even a more popular destination because of the investment that's being made by the new owners there. So we see this as a capital appreciation rise that's going to go on for a few years. Again, that's an overview of the development. We'll be redeveloping the golf course coming up in the next 9 months. That work will start. There's a redevelopment of Nikki Beach on the South Beach here, this beautiful white sandy beach here. And they're redeveloping the waterfront with new condominiums and buildings with retail and restaurants in them. So there's going to be a lot of new product coming up in Jolly Harbor in the next. That's the new entrance that's just being built. This is the typical Nikki Beach. You'll have them in Miami, Marbella, Dubai. They're going to have one on Jolly Harbor Beach here in Antigua, and that work has already started now. The golf course, we're redeveloping with our Canadian architect, Doug Carrick, and we plan 9 superlative holes and over 100 new homes and condominiums on that. So altogether, there'll be somewhere in the area of 300 new residences in Jolly Harbor over the next 8 years. The harbor front, they've torn down a lot of these buildings, started now, and they're going to be putting up new condominium residences. These are the images of what they will look like. And that work's already started. The demolition's already started on that work. So we're in the middle of that now. This product will come to the market probably in the next 9 months as we finish off the product we have in the gardens. And in the south, we have a project called the Beach Houses, which has one house. We don't do fractions at the beach houses. And that's the south end of the island. That's English Harbor and Falmouth Harbor. It's particularly beautiful here. It's a national park. It's a World UNESCO site. There's not for example, the larger cruise ships don't come south. They go north to the dock in town, and you'll get just super yachts and sailing boats in the south. And there's probably about 40 restaurants within 2 or 3 miles of the office where I sit here now. That's from my son and his girlfriend watching the sailing races a few years ago from our deck. And that's where I am now in my office. The boats have just left. So they come between November and May, and then they go back to the Mediterranean. So it's a super yacht hub for the area, for the region. That's the two bays together. And like I said, there's the beach houses project, which is just about out of property. We expect that to be sold out in the next month or so. And then this is kind of what the project started like, give you an idea of the topography. That was about 28 months ago. And this is the product today. Actually, that's about 6 months ago, and you'll see how quickly vegetation grows here. Within a year, you'll have the whole house enveloped in tropical vegetation, palm trees. That house has been sold now, and the other 10 houses, there's one left. As I said, we've got 2 more under construction. 3 more will start in the next month or 2. So it's been quite busy for development in Antigua in the last 2 to 3 years. This is a idea. This will give you an idea of the interior finish that we have in our higher end project. And we don't sell these in fractions. These houses range between 1.8 million and 3.2 million furnished. So this is a relatively small development. There's only 11 houses in it. It's been quite successful though. So our next project is close to it, and it's a much larger project that we're planning called Rendezvous Bay. And this is the project that brought us to Antigua 15 years ago to start to work on it. And that's when my wife and I fell in love and ended up staying here full time. And we base our business now internationally in Antigua. We do development work in Europe and North America also. So this is the south coast of the island, and this is Falmouth Harbor where I'm sitting now. Again, I'll give you an idea of the topography, and it's not overly developed at all. There's a lot of opportunity in Antigua to find a beautiful property, not very crowded. This is Rendezvous Bay. This is our next project. It's 350 acres of private bay with a beautiful beach. And we'll have a hotel in there that we will fraction. These are some of the back hills, and that's the beautiful beach that we're on. And the hotel is going to be based on the Nayara hotels in Costa Rica with Angelo Zaragovia. And these hotels, he has 2 hotels in the top 5 in the world on TripAdvisor. So he's very ecological minded and environment minded, and he'll fit really well into Rendezvous Bay with this. Yeah, and that's the end of the slideshow in terms of property in Antigua. I'm open to some more questions on it, but you've got the range of property. It runs from 300,000 for a fraction up to 3.2 million. So that's kind of the market in Antigua. I'll pass it back to you, Judy.
Amazing. Thanks, Brian. I just wanted to chime in that one of the things that I've been able to work with Brian on is when I have multi-generational families. So grandparents do one share of 300,000, and then they may have like 3 adult children that are both married with 3 grandchildren each, 3 children each, and they'll buy a villa like for the family. 300,000 shares for each family unit. And then they have a full deed property that they can use for themselves for personal use or to combine with use as an investment property. So that works really, really well. And Brian has a great setup for that. All right, now to the paperwork. Because to get access to this beautiful country, you do have to prepare some documentation. And that is why we have Juliet here. We work incredibly closely with her for our clients, making sure that every I is dotted, every T is crossed, every document is certified, so that our clients have a very easy and seamless approval process. So Juliet, can you share a little bit about what's involved with becoming a citizen?
Sure. Thank you, Judy. And thanks for being here. And I'm very happy to be a part of the panel today to share the exciting process of the application world. I know it may not seem to be the most exciting part, but I honestly have the pleasure of getting to know all of the applicants. That's my takeaway. And I'm really thrilled when I especially get to meet them at our oath of allegiance. And these would be clients who have been very successful at their application and been very happy to visit Antigua for their residency. And it's only for 5 days within the calendar, within the first 5 years. And so we're all very happy to be able to work with Henley and partners, especially. They're experts in their fields, and I must say they have really smart staff and really empathetic towards all of their clients' needs, and they really are, very happy and excited when they all are approved at the end of the process. But to complete the process, it's not very difficult. However, it could be a little cumbersome and a little challenging for some clients. But with Henley's and partners' help, I would say it's made the application process quite seamless, and we have an exceptional approval rate. So just a few points. I'm not going to labor into all of the actual, dotting of the I's and the T's for this presentation. I'll just simply relay some of the more major points. So all the applicants will have to choose an investment. You would have heard about the investments from Mrs. Donovan, and you would have also heard about the real estate investment option from Brian. And there's, of course, the National Development Fund, where you can make a contribution to the economy. And I just wanted to just say, to add to Mrs. Donovan's presentation there in terms of the University of the West Indies investment, there is a benefit where one family member has 1 year scholarship at the University of the West Indies. So that's a great benefit to for any of the investments. So the next step, you would have to gather the required documentation. So with Henry's help, we would be able to look at the official documents, and some of the documents such as the passports and the birth certificates and marriage certificates would require certification or apostilling. And in this case, the RMs are very instrumental in advising you on exactly which aspects are required for each document. We also need to have police clearance certificates because we need to make sure that you are, of course, eligible and you have not created or had any criminal record per se. And we will also need medical certificates. We need proof of investment funds. We would need to make sure we understand your residential history, and we need to look at your financial records. One of the most important things will be to establish your assets. The program is a citizenship by investment program. So the emphasis would then be on your accumulated net worth, how you've come into your sums of your funds, and how you plan to fund the investment. So it is very important that you work with an agent such as myself and Henley to be able to guide you through the process and share with you all of the aspects and the ins and outs of the actual application. After you'd have gathered your documents, we would need to submit the application. So the application forms that are involved in the process, they're just about 5, along with the passport application form. We do gather a lot of important information: family data, qualifications, work history, employment, residential history, and of course, your assets. We do require bank statements and like to verify your funds. Then we will now be very happy to submit your application. With the submitting of your application, you would need to pay the required fees. So the fees are 10% of the government due diligence fees, and you would need to pay all of the due diligence fees upfront to start the process. Now, the process of itself will be, it will take about 90 days. Currently, depending on each file, we may have some added time depending on the verification process from the international due diligence providers. But most likely, once the application is provided, when we have done all of our dotting of our T's and dotting of our I's and crossing of our T's, that applicant has a better chance of having an application approved within a shorter time frame. So during the due diligence process, though, I would indicate that there is a virtual interview that is done at towards the end of the due diligence process before it goes to final assessment and approval. And this is the exciting part for many clients. So once the approval is done, they would need to then make the investment. So they would make the investment within a 30-day period. And then after that, the citizenship certificates are prepared and the passports are issued, and then the client is required to take their oath of allegiance. that in a nutshell is pretty much the process. Of course, there's a lot more detail, and this is where it is important that we know all of the clients' history. There is an area on the application forms where you make various declarations, and it is important that this process is taken seriously, and because the due diligence is very important, because we want to make sure that all of the applicants that are inducted or become citizens of Antigua would be the best version of themselves, as well as the best possible individuals for our country. So some key considerations will be the due diligence process, and the interview, which I can answer a few questions on that, but this is to verify, of course, that you are indeed a human being. All family members would be on the live call. You wouldn't have to worry if everyone is in a different destination. We're able to allow for that. And I mean, I think the most important thing for the application is evidencing your source of wealth. Now, the interesting thing for the Antigua program, we've not made a legislation to indicate the threshold for your net worth. As long as you are able to fund investment and to show that you are financially capable, then you would be eligible to make application. So, Judy, I am very short, very
No, that's
much on
great.
point. I wanted to make sure that it is not a difficult process. We have good experience in application processing. We know the landscape. We are able to communicate directly with the Citizenship by Investment Unit. I would dare say we have very good relations with the unit, as well as all of the other stakeholders. And we're very happy to be able to process your application and give you valuable feedback. And we look forward to, making sure it happens. I think the best part for me is when a client comes to complete their oath of allegiance. And, at that moment, it's very emotional for some clients, and some have never been into the Caribbean. They've never seen the beaches. They've never seen this in the climate, and they fall in love. Some don't leave. Others look at it as a great investment opportunity, such as maybe investment in real estate if you're looking for an income property. Others are looking for retirement homes and even wealth planning, and we have everything for everyone. So, I'll welcome any questions you may have and look forward to guiding all of the clients through the process. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Juliet. So far we only have one question, but if anyone else has a question, please type away. And I think, Charmaine, you probably would be the best one to answer this. This question was, can you talk a little bit about the banking system in Antigua and Barbuda? So if you can give any, you don't actually need a bank account in order to apply for citizenship, but for people that do have questions about banking, can you elaborate at all? Oops, you're on mute.
Just realized that. Apologies. Yeah, I'm happy to speak about banking. The interesting thing is that the banking system in Antigua and Barbuda is closely related to the American banking system. Most of our banks have corresponding banking relationships with American banks. The process, I would say, is very well documented. I wouldn't want to characterize it as very easy, because the era that we're living in requires that we ensure we know who our customers are. Therefore, there are key points, key answers, key questions that you need to respond to for the bank to establish a bank account. But once you have the bank account established, you can perform transactions to anywhere in the world. Our banks can facilitate moving funds across the world. We have a minimum investment rate, a minimum, savings interest rate. It's very similar to what you will have in the United States. We have online banking, credit cards, debit cards, other investment products available in the bank. It's once you're able to get through the application process of providing your name, the expected activity on the account, proof of address, all of your identification documents, and you're able to successfully get through their due diligence process, then it's pretty seamless thereafter. And because in most instances, persons who came through the program would have had to pass funds through these banks, they already have some sort of information on the applicant. And so that assists when it is that the applicant, the successful applicant decides to establish a bank account in Antigua and Barbuda. And that can be done when you make your 5-day visit to Antigua and when you come to swear your oath. The thing is, you will be so captivated by this country that you will definitely want to establish roots here, including establishing banking relations.
Excellent. So we got a couple more questions. One of them is, can you remind me of the benefit of having a citizenship in Antigua? And there are actually a lot of benefits. I'll rattle off a few and then the group can chime in. One is you have an alternative mobility option. In this day and age, when people are trying to mitigate risk, they want to have options. They want to have options about how they can travel. Again, reminding you of the pandemic, or if there were some other circumstance where you aren't able to travel on your current passport, to have an option for another one is helpful. 2, you have the ability to live in not only Antigua, but they're part of a union called OECS. So you could actually live in several Caribbean countries, including St. Kitts, Grenada, Dominica, St. Lucia, St. Vincent's and the Grenadines, and Montserrat. There are also some benefits to spend extended time in other Caribbean countries called the CARICOM countries. Again, Charmaine had mentioned that you can add future generations to the application. So you can think of this in terms of a legacy plan. Any other benefits you can think of, Charmaine, that I'm not mentioning?
Well, there's so many. There's so many. Wow. Healthcare, like I said, normally persons don't associate small countries with good healthcare. The educational system, it's very top-notch. Top tier is what we would use in this setting. You touched on mobility already. We spoke about stable economy earlier. Safety and security, very low crime rate. There's so many.
Excellent. It's a good plan B, and it's affordable in the scheme of things. Obviously at Henley we do many programs, but the Caribbean is considered to be one of the most affordable options and also the fastest. And that sort of transitions into a question that someone asked, how long does the process actually take? So what I would say is there is a period required for us to gather all of the application materials, and the length of that time really depends a lot on the motivation of the client and how responsive they are. We've had clients that have been incredibly dedicated and have gotten everything that we've needed in about 4 or 5 weeks. Some things, will take a bit of time, such as the FBI report that has to get a federal apostille, which can take a couple of weeks, or other elements if you have to order a new birth certificate or something of that nature. But we can actually get someone submitted rather quickly if they're responsive. And then once it is submitted, it is in the hands of the Citizenship by Investment Unit. And Charmaine, maybe you can pick up a little bit on what you're seeing as current time frames for approval right now.
Sure. But before I respond to that, there was something I really wanted to highlight, because another thing that is not very common in smaller countries is the cultural experience. When I say cultural experience, because we have representation from almost all major cultures on the globe, when you enter our supermarkets, you can find foods or items that are associated with your culture, which then again cements the experience of the home feel being in Antigua and Barbuda. You have many restaurants to choose from, Indian, Chinese, Japanese, just a hodgepodge, a mixture, a fusion of experiences, both culinary, art-wise, culture-wise. So in terms of responding to the question on the application processing time, I know the legislation speaks to 90 days, but again, there are some caveats. As Judy said, it really depends on the motivation of the applicant. There's some applications that come in that are very well documented, I's dotted, T's crossed, and we can see them going through the process 3 to 4 months. Since we've added the extra layer of the mandatory interview, that too I find is dependent on the responsiveness of the applicant. The unit reaches out to say these are the available dates for you to have your interview done. Sometimes persons take too long to respond, and so additional dates have to be sought and provided. So it really does depend on the applicant's responsiveness, their motivation, the quality of the application that comes to us. I have to say that because Henley has been in this business for such a long time, the quality of the applications tend to be very good. And so you can see a higher success rate as well as more efficiency with their applications. But again, it depends on the responsiveness. If during the investigative process, we realize that there are some unanswered questions based on the documentation provided in the application, this unit, I am told, is one of the very few units that will actually come back to you to ask for clarity on matters that we would have identified, as well as additional documentation. And again, dependent on how responsive the applicant is, this could be efficient or it could take a little longer.
Great, thank you. Brian, this one is for you. A client is wondering how much annual appreciation they might expect if they were to make an investment in one of your properties.
Okay, thanks, Judy. I was also going to mention, I had my mute on when Charmaine was talking. I was going to say the same thing, is that as a international who's moved to Antigua and lives here and has lived here for some time, the international influence in Antigua that's way above its weight. So for a small island, you get cultural influence from a lot of different places, as Charmaine said, and it's very invigorating to people that you meet in Antigua. You don't feel like you're on an island in the middle of the North Atlantic Ocean. You feel like you're in a hub, which is great, and a lot of the benefits and amenities that come with that. And that kind of drives the capital appreciation value. Antigua is not popular because of its citizenship program. Antigua is quite popular because of its lifestyle and destination status. And the citizenship program is a wonderful addition to that. It's the icing on the cake. So you'll see it's difficult in a small island in Antigua because we don't computerize our property records. So no one can really tell you exactly what the growth over year is, but being in the development business, we see it being in the 5% range over the last 3 to 4 years. And I think that capital appreciation value is going to stay on that kind of an incline for at least 5 to 8 years because of the amount of development that's being planned by international developers like myself. And the other nice thing about Antigua is it's not a mass destination. You don't have towers of 1,000 apartments looking down at you on the beach. It's a boutique destination. So it marries very well for lifestyle people who want to come in and make a second home or even a primary home. This is what we've done now is, it's easy, just as easy for us to work here as it is in New York or London because of the communications and the access and the people that come through here. So all those things drive property appreciation value. And the nice thing about the program also is that it allows anyone who buys a property the first time to sell that property a second time to someone who's also seeking citizenship status. So that's a wonderful out for your first investment. Though I think the really important divestment is the market. There's generally a market for lifestyle properties here. It was here a long time before citizenship started, and it'll be here a long time after citizenship is over. So I would think you can count on somewhere in the 5% range a year for the next decade.
Great. Okay, here's a hypothetical. We'll have Charmaine answer it, or Juliet maybe. The son gets citizenship in Antigua. The son then gets married. They have a child. can you confirm that both the spouse and the child will be able to get citizenship? And thinking very far in the future, when that child gets married, is there a future for another generation to get citizenship?
Okay, maybe I'll take a stab at it, and then Juliet can jump in the end. And I have to say that this is the reason Antigua and Barbuda won that award for Family Inclusivity Excellence Award. So the legislation allows for children up to the age of 30 to be included in the initial application. So you have an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old on your application, and then maybe 5 years down the road, he or she gets married. Yes, that spouse can be included on the application, and they have children, that child can be included in the application. The generation stops there, though. So if it is that grandchild then gets married and has children, then separate applications would need to be submitted for those persons. But that's the wonderful thing about Antigua and Barbuda. Because we recognize that family is so important, we've made it our business to ensure that the definition of dependence can be so expansive that it includes from your grandparents, right down to your grandchildren.
Great. And I would just chime in that Antigua really distinguishes themselves with the age of 30 not requiring financial dependence. You will not find that in any other program. So it's definitely my go-to when I'm talking to a family with kids that are over 26. You referenced good schooling and healthcare. Can you talk a little bit about whether that is subsidized, or is it tuition? Is it high cost for healthcare? Any feedback on how education and health costs?
We do have a mixture. We have privately run institutions, educational institutions, where, of course, these are paid schools. We also have the public education system that, as long as you are living here, you are legally living in Antigua and Barbuda, that your children can attend school free of charge. If you're living in Antigua and Barbuda and you're contributing to the national insurance system, then healthcare is also free, subsidized. And then, of course, we have private healthcare in Antigua and Barbuda. So if you want a particular experience, then just as you do in other parts of the world, you would need to pay for that level of care. But there is the opportunity to obtain government-offered education as well as government-offered healthcare.
Great. So one more question. I think Brian will probably chime in, although I've sat in on so many calls with him, I could probably answer this one. But this is someone saying, like, what if I got rejected, like I didn't get citizenship, or what if I didn't want to get citizenship, but I wanted to buy property? Am I, as a non-citizen of Antigua, permitted to purchase property?
You are with a non-citizen's license, which is 70% of the property value. So a lot of times when the value gets to a certain level, citizenship makes economic sense on top of all the other benefits that you get. But if you don't get approved for citizenship, then your next stop is at the non-citizen's license from Inland Revenue, which is 7% of the property value.
Wonderful. Thank you. Those are the questions. So, oh wait, maybe one more came in. Hold on one second. Okay, I'll answer that one privately. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, panelists. You were amazing. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. We hope you found this worthwhile. We did record it, so if there's anybody that was unable to attend that you know would be interested, we'll be sending everyone who attended a copy of the link, and you can feel free to forward it to them. So have a great day.
Thank you, Judy. Thanks, Jermaine.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Brian.
Have a great day.
Juliet, Judy. All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.